Hi, me again. So I don't normally do videos where I just kind of ramble on about the most recent war bonds that came out, and this will be a very rambly type of video. I just have a bunch of bullet points in front of me, but other than that, this is going to be completely unscripted. So if you want to just put something in your ears and listen to it for the next however many minutes this is going to be, this is the type of video for you. But like I said, I don't normally just ramble on about the most recent war bonds because there are other, quite frankly, better people who already do that and can give you more details and stuff. But in this case, I am having legitimately so much fun with the control group war bonds. And not only for that item, which I'll talk about it, but also like just everything. Everything in this war bond is something that I've either wanted for a very long time or isn't something I thought I would care about, but ended up being really, really cool. And yeah, I kind of just want to ramble on about it. That way I can like stop annoying my friends. So first things first, we have the variable, which is a very, very weird kind of weapon and is also probably my new favorite, even above like the eruptor, just because of how silly, stupid, goofy, and fun this gun is. This gun combines a lot of ideas from other guns. Like it can function as a basic assault rifle. It can also function like a shotgun because it's got the volley mode. It's almost like a shotgun, but also kind of functions as a DMR too, which I'm a big fan of the diligence and even basic assault rifles. But every time I use those guns, you know, I've always kind of wished like I had a little bit extra, like just for my playstyle. And I'm not gonna talk about these things like in terms of meta or anything. Like if I think something's good, I'll say I think it's good. If I think something's bad, I'm gonna say it's bad. But for the most part, I'm gonna focus on fun. And I think everything here is extraordinarily fun. And I gotta say, I think the variable is super duper fun because like I said, I've always wished for a little bit more for my assault rifles and like the diligence on the bot front, but I didn't really know what that was. Like I don't think they need buffs, but I think for my play style, you know, I wanted a little bit more, and the variable is that little bit more that I needed because it combines aspects of the assault rifle and the DMR because it's got, you know, the basic automatic fire mode, it's got the DMR fire mode, which you can also think of like a break action shotgun, and this is break action too, which is probably the closest that we're ever going to get to getting the break action shotgun as a primary. Why is it not a primary? Arrowhead, please let me run around with it. But yeah, this is probably the closest we'll get to that, and it combines aspects of so many different weapons, and it just looks like the variable visually looks like something 7-year-old me would have drawn because he thought it looked cool. And 7-year-old me was right. This looks cool as hell. It looks stupid. I honestly think it kind of looks cool. And it is, in a way, kind of like a perfect weapon for this type of game because it's not only incredibly versatile, but it's also got, you know, the funny. It's got the total fire mode, which is kind of goofy, and you know, it can like knock you over and ragdoll you unless you're prone, but it perfectly fits into the satire of Helldivers. It perfectly fits into the gameplay loop. I think it's very good without completely overshadowing assault rifles. It's got a bit of a longer reload, and there's the ergonomic stat, which is also very low. I think it's even lower than the eruptor, which is kind of funny. I think kind of absurd, honestly, but I'm used to using the eruptor a lot, so I'm used to bad ergonomic stats, and my aim sucks anyway, so it's not like the ergonomics being like pinpoint accurate would really matter for someone like me. But yeah, I could ramble on and on about how much I like the variable. I think it's so fun. I think it's a perfect addition to the game, and I think it's very funny that a light pen, basically assault rifle type weapon, overtook the eruptor as my favorite weapon in this game. And the eruptor is previously one of my favorite video game weapons of all time. Like genuinely, I love that gun so much. And I think the variable is probably up there as well. If it hasn't beaten the eruptor, it's definitely number 2. Easy, and it's not even close compared to the rest of the arsenal. I love this gun so much. But yeah, I'm gonna force myself to move on so I don't just ramble on about this gun. So I'm sort of organizing this video so that way my favorite item is last, and my second favorite item, which is the variable, is first, right? So we start off on a great note and we end on a fantastic note, and the sort of criticisms will be more in the middle. But again, I like everything in this warbond. Even my least favorite item, I at least like the idea of, and I'm not gonna hate on anything. I'm gonna provide criticism where I think it's valid. So the laser sentry, I like the laser sentry. I'm a fan of the laser cannon, so of course I'm gonna like the laser sentry. I mean, there's not really much more I can say. I will say, I do think that it blowing itself up could have been done better, because in the case of the variable, it'll knock you over and ragdoll you and deal some damage if you're on the total mode and you're like standing up. If you don't go prone, then you get punished for it, essentially. So it's funny that it exists, and I'm glad it exists. I think it's really, really funny, but you can use it properly to mitigate that effect, right? The laser sentry, you can't really do that. It kind of just blows itself up all on its own. And this is kind of a problem with all sentries, where it'll target like a tank or something that it can't pierce and it just die, right? And other sentries will waste their ammo on like a heavy devastator whose shield it can't penetrate because the AI doesn't target the head or whatever. And I'm not holding that against the laser sentry itself, as it's more a criticism of all sentries, but specifically on the laser sentry, I think that what we could do, what they could have done, is add in a function where you can go up behind it and interact with it to turn it off for a little bit to let it cool down, and then you can turn it back on. That way it's a very powerful, like infinite ammo sentry, but you have to manage it, right? And I don't think that would be too powerful unless we're talking about like the rocket defense mission, in which case if there's like a limit of one of these at a time, I think that would make sense, which I don't really know how that, that would probably be overwhelming if you could just call in like 15 sentries. So maybe don't do it for that mission. Maybe have like a limit of one laser sentry at any given time or something. I'm not really sure, but I think if there was more of a manual interaction, that way when it does blow itself up, it is your fault, And the same goes for the next item I'm going to talk about and the last item I'm going to talk about, where if you damage or die with the next items, it's your fault, right? But yeah, I don't have too much to say about the laser sentry other than I like it. I think it's pretty good. I'm a fan of the laser cannon, like I said, so obviously I'm gonna like this. So yeah, moving on. Next up we have the epoch, and oh boy, I have a lot to say about the epoch, but I want to start off and I want to make it very clear. I really, really like this support weapon. I think it's very, very fun, and even in spite of the spread, which once the spread's fixed, at the very least, I think it'll be a very fun weapon. I'm not gonna talk too much about like meta or stuff, but I don't think this weapon is as bad as people are saying, but I also think it's as good as some other people are saying. I think it is mid, like middle of the road, the actual definition of mid. I don't think it's particularly good, but I don't think it's particularly bad either. I think it is just middle of the road, and obviously the spread is, please fix that as soon as fucking possible. It's so annoying, but even in spite of the spread, I've had a lot of fun using this weapon. And when I first used it, I pointed it at a hole and I hit it and it didn't one-shot it, and I'm like, well, this weapon's garbage. But later, because I've always wanted a plasma support weapon, and now we finally have that. Although honestly, I would have preferred if it was like a plasma machine gun is really what I wanted, but I'll take this. I still think the epoch is pretty cool. But yeah, I had to spend a little bit more time with this weapon, because honestly at first I didn't really know like what Arrowhead was going for with this gun, and after spending more time with it, I think I finally figured it out. And I mean, we can argue all day and night about whether or not it achieves this goal, but I think it's meant to be like an anti-recoilless rifle in a sense, because the recoilless rifle is primarily an anti-tank weapon, right? It is like the anti-tank weapon, but it also has the option with the high explosive ammo to be used against groups. Most of the time whenever I've used this, I've never interacted with that, but it's an option that's there when you need it, right? And more options is always good. I think the epoch is meant to be the opposite of that, where it's primarily something that's meant to be used against like small groups of like medium targets, but it has anti-tank capabilities if you need it, right? I think that's what Arrowhead was going for. And after figuring that out, spending more time with the gun, I've been having, as I said, a lot of fun with it. The spread, please fix the spread, and it'll be one of my favorite support weapons, honestly. I have so much fun with it, even though I don't think it's super great. And I do think it could use a slight tweak, like a slight change. I have like 3 different ideas for changes. I don't think it needs all 3. I think it needs one of these three. And then there's also an idea that I've seen floating around for like a basically almost a complete rework, which I think would be cool, honestly, and would give it more of an individual identity. But I don't know if it needs that, and it would be a lot more work than the ideas I'm going to present. But I'll talk about it. So the first change would be to just increase the damage, which I think is the most boring change. I don't think it needs an increase in damage, honestly. I think the damage is probably fine if it gets one of the other changes. And if you increase the damage too much, it'll like slowly start to overtake the Quasar, I worry. And honestly, I think the breakpoints are fine if these other changes go into effect. So the other changes, the second change, which is really two changes in one, would be to give it more reserve ammo, so we have more shots to lob out, but also take away the Neil reload, which at this point, I don't think it needs the Neil reload for how little ammo is in the magazine and how little damage it puts out compared to like the recoilless or the Quasar, right? I think the recoilless having the Neil reload is fine. It is the anti-tank weapon. It is, you get plenty of ammo for that roll, and the Neo reload is fine in that case. This thing having the Neo reload, I feel like it's kind of hard to justify in the current state. So if we could be more mobile and we had more shots to lob down range, I think that'd be great. And the last change, this is probably my preferred change, would be to just increase the mag size. I would say to like 5 is what I would personally want, and at that point, I think the Neo reload makes sense and I would be fine with it. But the reason I think that we need more ammo specifically in the mag is because you can two-shot like a War Strider, a Bile Titan face, and then you've only got one shot left to use against, and like a lot of people want to use this against like, you know, Chargers and Hulks and stuff, which are often two shots. I think it'll one-shot a Hulk if you hit the eye, but if you hit the body, it'll two-shot. So if you could kill like 2 War Striders, or like a War Strider and a Hulk, and then still have an extra shot to lob at a Devastator or something, I think that would feel pretty good. Or even if it was 4, but I feel like 5 really justifies the Neil reload, and I think that would be the simplest change. It would also just make it more fun, because shooting more and reloading less is always fun. So if I could make a change without changing anything else, I would say increase the mag size to 5. But yeah, overall, I do, again, I really like the Epoch. I got a lot of criticisms of it, and a lot of my negative feeling towards it is really coming from that bullshit spread. I cannot wait until that's fixed. I think it'll be very fun. And there's also actually an inside joke with my friend, where for whatever reason, whenever I bring this gun is fucking cursed, because it seems like we always get the most bullshit spawns and map layouts every single time I bring the Epoch. I don't know why, but we'll drop in and there'll be like 3 detector towers all in range of a stratagem jammer, and we're just fucked straight from the get-go. And it's only when I bring the Epoch. I don't know why, but yeah, no, the gun's kind of cursed, but I still like it. It is one of my favorite support weapons. I think it's fun. Just fix the spread, and I think if we had a little bit more ammo in the mag, like 4 or like, I would really want 5 shots, I think would be pretty solid. And even then, it wouldn't be like the best support weapon in the game. I think it would be solid, but I still think it'd be kind of middling, because, you know, it's meant to be more of a jack of all trades, but I don't think it does it enough. And I think more shots in the mag would let it be better at clearing out groups, you know? And then the final rework I've seen is giving it like 9 to 15 shots, and then having the charge shots take up more ammo. So like if it has 15 shots in the magazine, a charge shot would take like 3 to 5 shots. That would be fun, honestly, and it would make it more similar to the Purifier and the Scorcher, which, you know, like we can argue about. I don't think it needs a full-on rework. I really think it just needs an ammo size increase, but I can't deny the 9 like individual shots with like the charge shot option taking more ammo does sound extraordinarily fun, and I would probably really like that. But yeah, I think there's a couple ways that they could go with the Epoch. Anyways, I feel like I rambled on about the Epoch for a while. I like that gun, but I have a lot to say about it. Hey, editing Ricochet here. Sorry if my voice sounds different. It is currently 6 a.m. and I did not sleep last night, but I wanted to mention something that I forgot to go over. I skipped one of the bullet points. One thing I really appreciate about the Epoch is that I feel like it has a little bit more of a learning curve compared to other weapons. At least for me, it kind of had more, like I said, I had to spend a little bit more time with it to really understand it and figure out how to make it work. And that's something I can always appreciate in a game, when an item has a little bit more
time and effort put into it. Same thing with the variable, where there's a lot of things you can do. I didn't even mention, but you can kind of rocket jump with the variable, which is super duper cool, and probably has a few practical use cases and most of them impractical, but all of them fun. So yeah, I just wanted to come in here and mention that real quick.
Moving on, we have the arc grenade. Now, this is my least favorite item in the war bonds because it kind of goes back to what I talked about with the laser sentry, where it's not really in your control. And whenever I play a game, I really value consistency in the items I choose. Like the variable, very consistent. The eruptor, even when it was nerfed, you still consistently had that explosive utility, which is always very nice to have. The arc grenade isn't consistent really at all, and it's like that by design, right? So by design, it's not really a weapon I'm gonna like or use a whole ton. I like the idea of an electricity grenade. I've wanted something like this since launch, basically, but the fact that it'll randomly jump away from enemies or even jump towards you and then kill you, it's just kind of annoying and not really for me. It is admittedly kind of funny when it happens to your friends, and when it happens to you, at least your teammates can get a good laugh at it. In general, like, you're giving up explosive utility, you're giving up a lot of potential. And again, I don't like talking about meta a whole ton, but in terms of consistency and fun for someone like me, it's like every time I bring this, if I want lingering damage, I have two different types of fire grenades, the incendiary grenades. If I want a stun effect, I have the stun grenades. I just don't feel like this is the type of weapon for me, so unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Moving on to a much more positive note, though, we have the armor passive. Now, this is one of those things that was very surprising. I didn't think I would like or care about this as much as I did, but my first impression of this was using the Hell Bomb, and oh my god, is that really fun. I didn't do that on purpose, that's just how my loadout ended up being, because I use the Hell Bomb a lot. But when Servants of Freedom came out, I always wanted the Martyr passive in that to also set off the Hell Bomb when you die, and unfortunately it doesn't. But this kind of allows you to do that, and it's even more fun because you can run up to a factory strider's face and maniacally laugh as it just dies. And it's really, really fun to set that off when you die, because it's like, oh, well, I'm dead. Might as well use my stims, get to the middle of a bunch of enemies, hit 5 on your keyboard, and yeah, it's super duper fun. But even outside of that combo, this is niche, but I do think it has a pretty cool use case where oftentimes, you know, if you've ever died early, I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but if you die like early on in a mission and your stuff's on cooldown, like, I don't know what it is, but the enemies seem to just like puppy guard my shit. They just like stand on top of it, whether it's a Bile Titan or a Harvester or a Hulk. Like, I'll have 3 Hulks just surrounding my support weapon and backpack, and I just can't get my shit back. And that's an extraordinarily frustrating situation, because you either are going to enter into a death loop of trying to get your stuff back, or you just run away from the enemies, which, I mean, you'll live, but that's really just boring, and now I'm not having fun, and I can't really contribute as much as I could with my support weapon, and it's just frustrating. But this armor passive actually allows you to alleviate that a little bit, where you can either spend the rest of your stims, because it's like you're dead, you might as well spend your stims, right? Toss your grenades, and you can hopefully get to either run to a safer space to drop your stuff, and then you can be reinforced and pick up your stuff more safely, or just outright kill the enemies that killed you. And honestly, that's a pretty good use case, I think. You know, it's niche, and you can always say like, oh, skill issue, just don't die. And I mean, I kind of agree with skill issue, just don't die. But in the situation where that does happen, you know, it's fun to have a final stand and make it safer for your next Helldiver to drop in and grab the stuff. So even though I don't think this is like the best armor passive, I feel like this will actually be a pretty popular one, because the final stand is really, really fun. And I do kind of wish there was a way for your teammates to like run up to you and save you, and that would encourage team play more. But even as is, I think it's a very fun passive. So yeah, finally, the next item, the last item, you know what it is, I know what it is. It's my favorite item in the game. It's the warp pack. I love the warp pack. This is the coolest thing they've ever fucking added into the game, they ever could have possibly added. My friend and I I had a friend a year ago. Oh man, like a year and a half ago. Jesus Christ. When the game first launched, he wanted a melee weapon and a wave dash. And, you know, I feel like we all kind of knew melee weapons would be added at some point, even though they wouldn't be super good. They'd at least be fun. And eventually, you know, the Urban Legends Warbond dropped and we got the Sun Lance and it was pretty fun. You know, we have the sword and the axe, and melee weapons are super fun. I did not for the life of me think that they would ever add in a fucking wave dash into Helldivers 2, but here we are. We have a fucking Doom Eternal anime dash, and it's great. I love the warp pack so much because it changes the game in such a fun way, and this is why I'm just like rambling, because I could ramble forever about how much I love the warp pack because it's useful against all factions, I think, and I think it is actually at its most fun against automatons, because not only can you like dodge projectiles and stuff, which is already fun, you can just ignore walls, which is super duper cool and adds in a whole new layer of depth for how you position and interact with the bases in this game. And particularly automaton cities, which have a ton of walls, are really, really fun to use this thing in. I love using the warp pack in the automaton cities. It is so freaking cool. And I love the general design of it, because not only can you like enter into a base in a much more creative way than you could with even with the jump pack, because like the jump pack does leave you a little bit exposed, but you get like longer bursts of movement. So you like if you're using it to retreat, I do think you're kind of safer. This fits into my play style perfectly, because you can like get out of trouble, but you can also get into trouble, and that's what's really fun about it. And so like the design of the warp pack, the purple warp is safe, right? When the bubble is purple or blue, I think it's more purple personally. It's kind of like in between purple and blue. When it's blue or purple, it's safe, and then when it's yellow, it's risky, but it doesn't outright kill you. It said does a random amount of damage, and it has a chance to set you on fire as well as like break a limb or something. But you have the safe warp for general mobility, and then you have like an emergency warp to really get you out of a bad situation, and that's really, really cool, right? I love items and games that allow you to spend your health as like a resource. Like I love Soldier in TF2 because he can rocket jump for huge mobility at the cost of health and ammo. In Elden Ring, Night Rain, there's an item you could potentially get that's like I think the skill's like seppuku, I believe it's called, and you can stab yourself and lower your health for more damage, and shit like that is super cool to me. And now something like that is in Helldivers 2, and it's so freaking cool and useful. Like it's I was worried because like as soon as I saw the warp pack, I was like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. But I was worried that they would like hold back too much and like limit, you know, how often you can use the warp. Like I was worried that they would like make the cooldown absurdly long, or make the warp pack only have like a limited amount of like juice. So let's say that they actually, you know what? I'm not gonna say. I don't want to give anybody at Arrowhead ideas. Not that I think they're gonna watch this video, but I think the cooldown's reasonable. I think I think the yellow teleport, the fact that we can still use it if we need to, is a super cool design choice. And then obviously it'll just like blow you up, which I think is really funny if it's red. It's so cool and unique, and also it has perfect synergy with the variable and the epoch, because like you can charge up the epoch while teleporting. So if you're using the epoch or the quasar cannon or the railgun, you can like teleport out of cover, fire, and then teleport back into cover at the cost of a little bit of health. And I mean, like, this is a perfect item. Much like with the variable, I think this is a perfect item for Helldivers 2. It's perfectly goofy and also effective and fun, and it strikes such a perfect balance. This really is lightning in a bottle, I think. Like, using the warp pack really gives me that same feeling that I got when I first played Helldivers 2 for the very first time back in, I think it was March 1st I played the game for the first time, and that was so goddamn fun when like I dive in with my friends and they're throwing 500s and they're throwing lasers and there's like rockets on Malevelon Creek firing everywhere, and I've just got a precision strike and a machine gun, and I have no idea what the fuck's going on. And this kind of gives me that real sense of wonder, because like there's so many interactions with enemies. Like you can set the variable to total mode and teleport behind hulks. You can teleport behind chargers. You can teleport away from chargers. There's so many cool interactions. And like I said, the cities in particular, the way that those are laid out, they're like like, there's not too much verticality in this game, but the cities have a little bit, and it's just enough to make the warp pack super interesting because you can warp up and even down certain walls, and it's just so freaking cool. And of course, you can just ignore certain walls. You can teleport into trouble. You can teleport behind a wall. Like you can teleport behind a Hulk, set the variable to total mode, and just appear behind him like the spy from TF2, and then warp out. It's so freaking cool, and I can ramble on forever. And I really do think the design is like just perfect. Like, I mean, I could nitpick if like I really wanted to. Like, you can't reload while teleporting. If you teleport in the middle of a reload, it does cancel your reload, which I think it's fine. It doesn't really bother me a whole ton. Just like manage your ammo appropriately. Like I said, another like, and this is again, I'm nitpicking, but the damage you take from the risky teleport is random. It randomly sets you on fire and it randomly breaks a limb. But I use medic armor anyway, which kind of mitigates any amount of damage and limb breakage. I think medic armor is probably the strongest thing you could pair with this because it gives you more access to that risky teleport if you need it, and it just increases your mobility and is so fun. And it's one of those things that like feels like a proper build. Like medic armor plus warp pack feels so damn strong and fun, and I don't think it's overpowered. I think the warp pack is like perfect where it is. But again, like if I wanted to nitpick, I could mention like I'm a guy that likes consistency. Random damage isn't really my cup of tea, but you know, it is a risky teleport. You have a big old yellow warning sign behind your guy's head, so it's like you knew what you were getting into by teleporting, right? And you really shouldn't be using the risky teleport at low health anyways, I feel. And then like the last nitpick I could mention, which isn't a nitpick of the warp pack, it's a nitpick of keybinds, is that we can't change the jump pack or warp pack or hover pack keybind to just be instant, which is fine. Like we don't need twitch reactions. The Helldivers is not that fast paced of a game that you need super fast paced reactions. But you know, for someone like me, it'd be nice to make this instant. And obviously it makes sense because mantle is also space by default, but I can't even like change it to something else or change mantle to something else. Like just let me change my binds, Arrowhead. But yeah, like again, I could nitpick, but like none of that really matters or puts a damper on the fun. Again, like just you know what you're getting into with the yellow teleport, manage your ammo appropriately and it doesn't matter. And then when it comes to the binds, it's not really a negative on the warp pack, it's a negative on like why can't I change my binds and adjust them how I want. But like the warp pack is just so freaking cool. It is legitimately a 10 out of 10. As I said, those are like real nitpicks. Like I had to look for those. Those are just nitpicks, and they don't put a damper on the fun that I have with this item at all. It is a perfect item for the game, for my playstyle. I fucking love it. And what's really cool too is, and obviously they just added new base layouts with the cities, but whenever they add in more base layouts, because they probably will, like the Illuminate will probably come like August or September with the Xbox release. The Illuminate Cultists, I mean. But the warp pack, whenever new bases and missions do get added, the warp pack makes every mission like exponentially more interesting, and the new missions will make the warp pack exponentially more interesting because of how you can interact with the map, with the enemies. It's just so freaking cool. And like with the variable, I could ramble on forever about how much fun the fucking warp pack is. It is so much goddamn fun. It's so cool. I love it. It is genuinely the best thing. Like it is more than I could have asked for. Like I don't know how they top the warp pack for me. I don't know how they top the variable in terms of fun for someone like me. Like the only thing they could add in at this point that would make it more fun is like a grappling hook secondary. But I mean I don't know. Like I could go on for the next 3. Ooh, I dropped something. I could go on for the next 3 like hours about how much I enjoy the warp pack, but I'm gonna end it there so I don't start sounding like a broken record. I love the warp pack. I love the variable. Please fix the epoch spread. Maybe even give it a mag size buff. You know, I don't want to ask for too much, but the epoch is still very fun. I love everything in this warbond, even the arc grenade, which is my least favorite item. At least I like the idea of, and I can see the points in making it. And you know, if somebody likes the randomness and it's funny to them, I can totally see someone using it, even if it's not for me. But yeah, I like everything in this warbond. I think this is a 10 out of 10 warbond in terms of fun. Where would it be on the tier list? I don't know. I don't really care. But I think this is definitely one of the warbonds. Like Democratic Detonation, obviously everyone's gonna recommend that as number 1. But like I think think for me personally, for my play style, this is a very close like second to the control group warbond for me. It's my personal number one for sure. And but yeah, I just wanted to ramble on about this just so that way I can let these words fall out of my mouth and not annoy my friends by saying I love the warp pack every 5 seconds. Anyways, if you did make it this far, thanks. I don't know why you would make it this far. But yeah, I appreciate it. Have a good day. I'll see you guys later.